Here we go.
So I'm finally here, recording for you another retrospective for YouTube. Like and subscribe if you wanna clap as I explain to you why this game is crap. When Nintendo was sued by Universal Studios for infringement of the King Kong brand, their lawyer was so proficient and smart and talented and handsome and ultimately successful that Nintendo created a series of games after him. The lawyer's name was John Kirby, however the series was not named after him but his wife, Donkus Colonkus. And that series was, of course, Donkey Kong, which would go on to sell over 5,000 copies in the southern and northern hemispheres alone. Donkey Kong originated from a game in a very large box where a racially insensitive monkey threw barrels at an Italian man, and more recently appeared in the 2020 Olympics. But along that journey there were many other games. Games that had revolutionary technology, games that revolutionized the series, and others that I haven't bothered to put into this here script that I'm writing right now. And for much of that time they were developed by a little studio called Rare. If I were to make a penis reference relating the amount of talent in Rare to the hardness of said penis, this video would be demonetized. Suffice to say, penis hard. And in the area of Donkey Kong 64, where 3D gaming was becoming possible with the Nintendo 64 and the platforming genre absolutely excelling in this space, with Super Mario 64 blowing the doors open and Rare themselves one-upping Shiggy right out of the gate with Banjo-Kazooie, DK64 looked set to exceed, with more playable characters, more fancy graphics, and more bananas that you can shake a banana taken from the rest of the bananas to shake at. And it did succeed in a lot of ways. In no way did it more succeed than with the finest example of monkey-based animation and hip-hop that the console had to offer. But in a lot of ways, it did not succeed. Now, I'm not going to say that DK64 was a bad game. I would say that it was very good and very polished. And this series of videos is an adult's perspective of how I felt about these games as a child, an exercise in nostalgia, and to see if I still feel the same way. And unfortunately as a kid, I did hate this game. And no, the title of this video wasn't clickbait, and now as an adult I hope to have the brain thoughts and speaky words such that I'm able to convey why I hated Donkey Kong 64. The Nintendo 64 was my first console, so I had no idea what a Donkey Kong Country was, or even where on earth I could find it. I did not know who a Donkey Kong was other than a big monkey that played like Shite in Smash Bros. 64. Seriously, what kind of recovery is this? However, one day my parents bought DK64 for the Nintendo 64. I don't know why, maybe it was Christmas or something, who knows. And the cartridge was yellow. Ooh. Already this game sets itself apart, being one of the only non-grey coloured cartridges other than my golden Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask cartridges in the collection. It should be way better than those other scummy grey cartridge games. Not content with its difference in colour, it also set itself apart by not being playable on the Nintendo 64 without an expansion pack. Wow, so cool. For some reason it didn't come with the game. I distinctly remember my dad being on the phone with someone selling the expansion pack and posting it to us from the other side of bloody Australia. Anyway, it eventually arrived and I slapped it in with much anticipation and started playing, and I kept playing for a long time. And I played it. I tried to find all the collectibles, as is my nature to do, and I kept playing it. However, it became one of those games that I never finished as a child. But fuck that kid, now I'm a man, I've got hair on my face and my nipples, and with better motion control and not so stupid brain function, and emulation save and load oops, forget that last one. Now look, I like monkeys as much as the next man, please don't look at my internet history, but the cast of playable apes in DK64 are a standout of this game. You have your main man, Donkey Kong, who comes across as a bit of a doofus, but with noticeable junk in his trunk. Diddy was a rad-tad dude who was too cool for school or the pool. Tiny was, well, tiny, and a girl.
DEI has ruined our country.
Chunky was this massive thug but kind-hearted and also a bit clumsy. And Lanky was sexually attractive. And like I said, please don't look at my internet history. Each character was visually unique and the game took every opportunity to emphasize their different personalities. For instance, in the character barrel, the selected character tries to appeal to the player, while other characters on the side vie for your attention to be selected, except for Chunky, who doesn't want to be picked. His relief when you switch off him is animated gold. The expressions of the characters is present in the humorous scenes where the characters drink potions, play instruments, or react to trespassers on their front lawn. Their unique personalities seep through the game and are extremely memorable. at least in the animated sections, but in terms of gameplay, each Kong plays roughly the same. All Kongs have the standard Mario 64 Banjo-Kazooie moveset. That's your jump attack, running attack, crouch, backflip, and long jump, which is pretty impressive for a selection of simians or even a posse of primates. Unfortunately, all Kongs feel quite slow and rigid compared to your Italian plumbers and bears with birds in their backpacks. Which felt tight and responsive in their respective games, I honestly struggled with any Kong crossing small jumps because they move so slowly. Despite the same controls, each character had a different run speed, jump height, and the attacks themselves varied significantly. I'm not entirely sure how Diddy hurts anyone with this attack. Furthermore, some characters' versions of standard attacks were atrocious, like Donkey's running attack where he slows down before generating enough momentum to hurl himself into space. Obviously the camera is not keeping up with him. I'm barely able to hit anyone with this attack. I overcorrect 3 times before Donkey shoots himself across the room. I would love a Zelda Z target lock on here. Despite the variability on show, the overall moveset and Kong control made this platforming a really subpar experience. In addition to monkeys controlling really bad for a platformer, they travel fast at max speed but have a slow start up and stop, causing me to overshoot many platforms and edges because they take so long to slow down. Again, Banjo and Mario accelerated to max speed and stopping was way quicker, took much shorter distance, leading to more forgiving platforming and more trickier platforming tasks as well because the control was tighter. These monkeys feel like they're walking on banana skins. But the major way the Kongs feel different is with their unique moves learned from Cranky Kong. And these moves, to put it bluntly, suck monkey testicles, as they only seek to artificially differentiate the characters. For instance, one of DK's move is to use a fucking lever. Like, are you serious? This needs to be its own move. And only DK could use them, not even Chunky Kong, who is stronger. Speaking of Chunky, both he and Diddy have a wall break move. Diddy's headbutt and Chunky's, bitch slap? But they are different, you see, because they break different walls. They can't break the same walls, very different. Neither are great offensively as they are both too slow to wind up. They just act as different keys, letting specific Kongs access specific areas. Ditto for the musical instruments and guns, which differ for each Kong, but are functionally identical, and just means bring this specific character here please. And in fact, most moves are just that, super specific keys disguised as a move. 2 learned skills that are just great include Tiny's hair twirl, which reminds me of Kazooie's air flap, and Lanky's hand run, which reminds me a lot of Kazooie's talon trot. They both succeed as they affect how you navigate the entire level from the moment you learn the skill, as opposed to a very contextual specific action like a bloody lever. Sorry, I can't get over that. As a result, the Kongs don't play meaningfully different from each other or even themselves at the end of the game when they've learnt all their skills. Which leads to the question, why not have just one character learn all the moves like in Banjo-Kazooie? Similar moves can be combined, character-specific levers won't be so painful, what with there being only one character. Well, for one, multiple characters are fun. But also 2, see first point. But that's kind of it. It is exceptionally inconvenient to drag every Kong to Cranky just to see if they have a skill to learn for that level. Backtracking becomes especially painful if the barrel is not close to his lab. The problem with artificially separating characters based on these moves is that anytime a lot of content was artificially locked from you. In DK64, the inherent gameplay loop is to play as a Kong, find a locked door or collectible for someone else, go back to the character select barrel, come back with the right Kong. It does this really cool and fun thing where it splits all the fun platforming and challenges into little bits, and diluting it with boring backtracking for contrived reasons. Only Diddy's guitar works here. Only Chunky can kill this Kremlin, because you see, his hair is green. His hair isn't red, you big dum-dum. You need Chunky's pimp slap here. You need a gun that fires a specific food, you idiot. Oh, and your butt slam needs to be upgraded for no difference in its functionality. It just shits blue instead of green now. And you need to hit switches from now on. You need Donkey Kong to use his ordinary fucking lever. This is still upsetting me. Mario and Banjo didn't have the balls to do this, that's for sure. And by this, I mean needlessly differentiating characters based on arbitrary moves to extend gameplay. And that's because they valued the player's sense of exploration. Donkey Kong 64 instead throws up all these artificial barriers to exploration. Ironically, once a Kong uses the key to access a unique area of the level, what that Kong has to do behind that door is usually not related to the skills of that Kong, because they're all functionally similar. But wait, Lanky shoots grapes instead of peanuts, I take that all back. With all these issues with the learned moves, artificially creating differences between the Kongs by making them essentially keys, i.e. contextual actions used only in a certain place the game allows or responds to, no character feels different, or that their moveset is being enhanced. Exploration of levels gets shot in the back, and the amount of backtracking skyrockets for reasons that are very, very trivial. Now that isn't to say that backtracking in games is bad, but only if it leads to something worthwhile, and if the levels that you have to backtrack through are good. Oh no. Like with the last section, I'm going to start with one point that I like before profusely shitting on the game. And with the levels, it's this. I love how they look visually, with my eye holes. There's a lot of bright textures in the game, textures that appear high-res as far as Nintendo 64 games are concerned, and with the expansion pack I would bloody hope so. And the expansion pack was definitely put to the limit with numerous lighting effects that were stunning. Everything pops, it's a visual treat. I gushed about shadows in Ocarina of Time being dynamic for Link's legs as well as for select objects. Donkey Kong goes one better and has dynamic shadows for each nearby light source. But when you have lots of lights around a Kong, each one just casts a shadow from the Kong. But in Ocarina, where the leg shadow quickly disappears, in Donkey Kong these shadows get massively warped based on the dynamic calculation, stretching across the screen. And the shadow is not a dynamic shape, it's your basic oval, so while technically impressive, it also looks worse. Nevertheless, heading into a cave, I was always impressed with the colourful lighting effects and ambience, and overall the levels do stand out from each other fantastically in terms of appearance and theme. Okay, now here comes the poo-poo. There are 8 levels in Donkey Kong 64. The first one, Jungle Japes, is the most monkey-friendly level, in that it is a jungle but also has lots of caves and a guy selling guns. Angry Aztecs is another level with buildings that you don't go inside. Then who would forget Frantic Factory that, well, actually I can't remember that one at all. Gloomy Galleon is a water-filled level with more caves as well for good measure, because we've already got those lighting effects. In Gloomy Galleon, more so than the levels before, the aesthetic and music combine to create a fantastic vibe or atmosphere. It feels gloomy, yes, but also magical and dangerous. Fungi Forest is a forest level that is nothing like Jungle Japes, because that's a jungle, and this is a forest, which is a very different thing. It also has mushrooms as well, which is very different. And the vibe of this level was great too. Crystal Caves was a level? Really? I mean, Donkey Kong 64 wiki says so I believe them. Creepy Castle I do remember. It is a spiralling path up a creepy old castle with many interior castle rooms, and the sense of theming and danger here makes it my favourite level of the game. And finally there was the Hideout Helm, which is the interior of K-Rool's ship that contains the weapon that all the Kongs must shut down and such. To call it a full level is overselling it, as it has no collectibles other than the banana medals, and really it's just a gauntlet of challenges for each Kong to reach the end and shut down K-Rool's Blast-O-Matic and then beat him up. While it's cool to be racing against the clock and for Snide and his blueprints to help you out, rewarding players who are more completionist than others, the challenge of this gauntlet is so great that I only reached the final boss of the game once as a child. Okay, so the levels are not that memorable to me, I admit, and I have a theory for why that is, and I must first talk about Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. Here is Bob on Battlefield, the first level of Mario 64. The player starts here, zigzags around, and then spirals up the mountain here. It's a large open area where you can see most of the course from where you are. Here's Mumbo's Mountain, and the same thing applies, a large central structure with different sub-areas in a largely open space. Now this is a diagram of Jungle Japes, the first level of DK64, and you can see a difference straight away. Instead of large open levels like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong on the other hand goes for labyrinthine levels with large areas for sure, but many narrow caved areas all around. It is fundamentally different level design, which is not to say that it's worse, but it is worse, and let me tell you why. Navigation is more difficult as narrow corridors tend to look similar, and the lack of openness means you didn't know where you were in the level. There were no easy signposts to get your bearings of where you were. Sure, parts of the level did feel unique, usually the large open areas and landmarks, but most parts, and especially the connecting tunnels, didn't, leading to many instances where you ask yourself, where am I? And the answer always is, in No Funsville, population my Kong ass. It added to this feeling of being lost in a maze, and worse still, all 8 worlds in DK64 are like this. I think the level design was to complement the artificial gating of the Kongs, as it is easier to gate off a narrow corridor than a part of an open 3D level. Let's do another example. Level 2 from Banjo-Kazooie, Treasure Trove Cove, and Level 2 in DK64, Angry Aztec. In Banjo-Kazooie, you start off on a pier. It's open and you probably head straight to the ship in front, or circle around the central mountain, which has many different challenges. Back to DK64, you start off in a tunnel, just like the first level mind you. You come across one blocked entrance, you need Lanky, who you free later in the level, and a bit further, you come across a door for Donkey. Oh great, I have him, and his guns. So I shoot the switch and find an ability I can't use yet. I need to find Cranky later in the level to get invincibility. Even after getting the skill, all there is in this underwhelming room is an enemy with a collectible on a precarious bridge. I have a couple more examples of gating that pisses me off, so I'm going to waste your time and my time by listing them. In Fungi Forest, a level further gated quite literally by the night and day mechanic at the central Kaku Tower. There is a gate requiring Tiny, and her bananas are in there, so great. Until at the end of the bloody corridor, Chunky switches. And what's worse, you need to change to Chunky, open the gate and find one of Tiny's fucking bananas. Or in Gloomy Galleon, you need to get Chunky to open this gate at the start of the level, only to enter and find a balloon for Lanky, bananas for Tiny. Already you've got 2 backtracks required for this single room. Level traversal becomes less an exciting exploration and more an exercise in frustration as you map out the mental list of what Kongs you need to bring where. And that really captures the essence of exploration in DK64. The whole purpose of the game is to explore and collect things, yet no matter who you play as, you will always come across places that you need the other Kong for. Either you see their bananas, or gun switches, or bad guys, or whatever, literally everything is Kong allocated. In one level I made this area accessible with Lanky and found 1 Kasplat for Diddy, 1 balloon for Tiny, and a musical pad for Chunky. That's at least 3 repeated swims to and from the nearest change barrel. It's frustrating, you never seem to have the right Kong for the occasion, as most of the stuff in the level is for whoever you're not playing as. And even if you had the right Kong, you might not have the right skill. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have butt pound level 3 that I need from Cranky who's at the end of the level? Oh, good for you. In the third last level of the game, Creepy Castle, I got confused as the game put targets further away and my bullet fruit despawned before it reached the target, which I thought was a limitation of the Nintendo 64. But no, having ammo that lasts longer in this realm of existence is a fucking skill learned from Cranky. And where the fuck is he? In a hidden cave somewhere. Oh, good for him. All of this has a negative impact on exploration and traversal. Getting the right Kong off skill for the right situation meant running up and down the same hallways, and it's not even fun or challenging traversing them. It's just empty hallways most of the time. There isn't a sense of openness with platforming and traversal, learning the cool speedrunning tricks. I should point out that there is one level in Super Mario 64 that does follow this labyrinthine design, and it's called Hazy Maze Cave. Oh, it's in the name, people. It was in the Crystal Caves, the last level of the game, where I saw an igloo with 5 entrances, 1 for each Kong, and I was like, I've seen this before, as early as the second level, Angry Aztecs. And just so the game made sure I didn't forget, it threw another 5-door split up later in the same fucking level. It's just crap level design. In Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, the lowest tier collectibles are used to guide the player around the level to all the different challenges. But because of the nature of the level design in Donkey Kong 64, collectibles are often hidden away. In Banjo-Kazooie, the lowest tier collectible, the notes, were used to guide the player around the level. The lowest tier collectible here, the banana, do that as well to some extent, but because there are so many bananas and so few level, the game will often squirrel these collectibles away in bundles, or hidden in balloons, removing their use as a navigational tool. An idea so stupid that surely it won't be used in future Rare. Oh no. Honestly, DK64 is the unfortunate warning signs between Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, but I'll get to that later. Speaking of Banjo-Kazooie and Super Mario 64, which introduced a 3D camera for platforming, Lakitu, who only had set positions he would swivel to, not free analog control, that limitation has been carried forward to DK64. But what makes this limitation more severe for DK64 is what the level then asks you to do. For instance, this room I mentioned earlier, the bridge is so narrow I'd like the camera to line up with it, but I can't as it hits the wall. So now I have to cross this tightrope blind. And that's the least of it. Donkey Kong has many floating vines to swing on, even in the first level. The problem? Very rarely does the camera line up with the jump that you need to do. You're often jumping blind and have to redo sections of the level. Challenging platforming is great. Simple platforming made challenging by technical bullshittery is not great or even an English word. And I suspect the devs knew of this issue because in challenges, the game automatically swivels you to line up with the next jump. But honestly, if it didn't, completing the game would not even be possible. Where this level design thankfully lets up is with the hub world. It is easily one of the funnest and most memorable parts of the game. From leaving DK's house and finding his banana stash, to exploring around the island, crossing over to K. Rool's equally imposing structure, sitting offshore and exploring that machine. Entrances to levels can be found across both structures, which was a nice touch. Coming across K. Lumsey for the first time was shocking based on his size, but he's willing to help you out. And finding secrets like the Banana Ferry Island really made exploring this island feel rewarding. But there was no gameplay here. All the gameplay, platforming, etc. was in the levels, which follow a much lamer design. Now, the design of these levels, while bad for the aforementioned reasons, could still be saved if there was fun challenges to do in them. Uh-oh. Okay folks, no positivity here. Let's jump straight into the deep end. Out of everything bad I have to say about DK64, the challenges are definitely not one of them. They were so much fun. They offered varied challenges that required skill from the player and no random chance at all. They were reasonably difficult and didn't make me throw any kind of childlike tantrum. And they all made my PP rock hard. Is what I would say if the challenges were not a steaming pile of feces crapped out of the arsehole of a political candidate from insert country here, and then beaten with an ugly stick that initially appears to be made out of wood, but is actually just more feces. And if my use of the word feces in my previous statement was any indication, I think the barrel challenges sucked. And here's why they sucked. 1. They were repetitive, you play each multiple times, which wouldn't be a problem if they were fun at all. 2. They rely on chance. Big Bug Bash and Beaver Bother really rely on lady luck, that the enemy AI works in your favour. 3. They were just insanely difficult. And 4. Putting these at the end of some already difficult 3D platforming to get the banana was not fun. More often it was a chore. They weren't all hard to be fair, some were supremely easy, like the shoot the golden banana or shoot the enemies games, which presents no real challenge to the player. And others that were not hard conceptually, but if the player fails, like they would get seen in a stealth maze, they're kicked out of the barrel and have to jump back in, watching the animation again. It's just wasting time. Of course the player is going to reattempt it. The pressure to not fail these challenges was the worst. This isn't Dark Souls. Fear of failure is not good in this situation. At least when failure comes down to factors you can't control. Here are some terrible challenges. Minecart mayhem. Between the iffy controls not always reading your input correctly, and mistakes leading to delayed failure, effectively soft blocking you, plus a wide collision on the barrels, this challenge will have you repeating it over and over and over without a better idea of how to complete it. Crazy Kong Clamour. Not too bad early, but in the later levels it goes dark before you can even react to where the golden banana is. I had to cheese it to beat it. Batty Barrel Bandit. It's just fucking slots. You have to do it 3 times, what a waste of my life. Beaver Bother. This game definitely bothered me. I felt like I had no control over their path, not to mention beavers can get stuck on the whole ledge. Are you serious? Or the boundary. I mean, I can't be mad, that's just a good strategy. All I can say with these challenges is thank God for save states and emulation. Thank the Lord Jesus H. Christ. And I'm an atheist. What boggles the mind is why they are in the game at all. And my first choice to improving Donkey Kong 64 would be to cut them out entirely. These barrels already occur after platforming through a level, followed by a Kong-specific puzzle or challenge. There is no need for then to be a barrel challenge on top of that. Comparing it to better games like Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, which had a main collectible in the open requiring the player to just reach that location, like the top of Tall Tall Mountain or the back of Bubble Gloop Swamp, or to solve a puzzle to progress, Bow Wow's Bars, or the Sandcastle codes in Jolly Roger. Meanwhile in DK64 there is a banana you can get with Diddy where you scale Creepy Castle, and then use Diddy's backpack to light a candle, which was both a unique and interesting challenge, albeit one that I found a little difficult. And either other game would just give you the banana right there, but not DK64. Good job, now corral these beavers into a hole. Oh, the beavers are stupid? Well too bad, fuck you. But owing to the developers' idea that these challenges were a good idea was the inclusion of the classic Mario arcade. Now I think that the original Donkey Kong is way better than any of the challenges they made for this game, but the gall of them to say, in order to finish DK64, that you need a coin you get by beating a portion of the original Donkey Kong game. Well, first of all, I found this hard to achieve, particularly as a kid, and annoyingly each time you attempt it, you had to see the same 3-second animation of Donkey Kong pulling a fucking lever. This challenge summarizes all of the game's challenges, unfun time wasters. Weren't these the developers who made Banjo? Did the whole office simultaneously have a stroke? In addition to the barrels, sometimes the game's challenge was the level itself. And not this little pocket of hell, but quality varied here as well. I really like the minecart sections which appear throughout the game. They are derived from the 2D country games but translate to 3D fantastically well. You can speed up, but this gives you little reaction time for obstacles, but too slow and an explosive goes up your ass. And the number of obstacles to avoid while trying to grab coins is very high, making it a very dense and intense experience. These sections are eminently replayable, but the slide race sucked, it was way too hard, and there are challenges that live in infamy, like the mechanical fish. Gloomy Galleon sucked as a level, as it involved a lot of get this monkey here, activate switch, timed run to get to an opened area here, access and get banana. But Diddy's execution of the mechanical fish blows. Firstly, getting into the fish's mouth was tricky, in the time limit due to what feels like dodgy collision. Then inside you have to shoot these 3 lights, each with whirring blades, ebbing and flowing water, and a bee enemy that could shoot you during the pause, as he will ruin your whole run. It is difficult, not fun, and whether or not the time was made impossible as it was tied to the frame rate is uncertain, as my frame rate was tanking for this whole level. But failure means ejection from the fish, and Diddy must go back to the original switch and do the whole thing again. Painful. Overall the game's challenges varied in how fair they felt, but at its worst was the ice maze in Crystal Caverns. A rotating ice maze that takes off a whole million of health. I thought I was pretty smart and obviously realised that I needed DK's invincibility here. My previous complaint was now a positive. Except there was no invincibility barrel in this room. You had to actually do it, despite the wonky hitboxes. And the Kong slidey controls that I changed specifically for this banana. Yes, I have used save and load states, but I don't care, this is unfair, suck my derriere. The game had a lot of things which it threw at you. In addition to the super cool barrel challenges, there were these little battle zones where you fight enemies in a small area. and if you survive all waves you get another collectible, a battle crown. But like the barrel minigames, the battle arena felt incomplete. The area was so small and the camera angle so weird, you could easily get wiped off when hit by a radius attack. Or multiple times you could jump and misjudge the distance from the camera and jump right off the platform. Or most fun of all, you could use a Kong with an attack that propels them forward at the speed of light, right off the edge. Overall, these sections felt like a marijuana user who didn't have enough money to buy all the marijuana he wanted. Half-baked. There is a lot of shit to collect in this game. A world record amount of shit, in fact. In any given level, of which there's 8, there's 100 bananas for each Kong, 1 banana medal for each Kong, 25 golden bananas, 5 for each Kong, as well as blueprints and banana fairies. That sounds like a lot, but I'm actually going to argue that it isn't. It gives the level lots of stuff to collect, which as a child completionist I enjoyed, but each collectible was unique with its own purpose. Golden bananas, equivalent to your jiggies or stars, are needed to unlock new levels. They are your major measure of progress. Collecting bananas is important too, as they are needed to feed Troffenscoff to access the boss of the level and get another golden banana. But also, if you got 75 out of 100 for each Kong in the level, you received a banana medal, which counted towards percent completion. Unless you wanted to play Jetpack and Cranky's Lag, which I sure as hell didn't. Just joking, that shit is necessary for game completion. Funsies! Banana Bunch coins also existed as a way to buy much needed guns, instruments, and moves, such as the lever pull, which was a very cool, very important move. Blueprints can be found in each level, 1 per Kong, and can be sold to Snide for a golden banana. How many you sell him over the game affects the gameplay at the end, with how much time you have to shut down the Killermatic. Each 1 blueprint gives you 1 extra minute in the final level, which is cool and gives these collectibles a narrative purpose for existing, but I hope you like those cutscenes with Rube Goldberg contraptions, releasing the banana. Because if you're a completionist, you'll be seeing it 5 times, 1 for each Kong. Thankfully, you can bring blueprints found in one level to Snide in another level, and he'll give you the banana for each. So you can save time, but lose a whole bunch of time because just like Cranky, you have to exit and enter Snide's hut with each one of the Kongs. Battlegrounds are another collectible I remembered, which are rewarded for surviving those half-baked arena fights. You need 4 out of the 10 crowns in the game to access K-Rool's throne room, for some inexplicable reason. There are banana fairies in each level that you must snap with a camera to rescue them or something. These fairies did nothing for story progression, but getting all fairies meant that you get a final golden banana to get that 101% completion rank. Yes, getting every collectible and that 101% completion ranking was a tremendous undertaking. I'm normally looked as a bit of a completionist light if you will. But I look at the list of collectibles and go, fuck that noise. What the fuck is that noise? Ah, fairy. A collectible with a whole new mechanic and item to use. Let's get a photo of it. Perfect. But what the game asked from you to progress was much more realistic. Only 4 out of 10 battle crowns, 15 out of 40 banana medals, etc. The only unreasonable thing in my opinion was requiring the Jetpack and Donkey Kong game completion. This is bonus material. It shouldn't be necessary for story progression because a door had a Nintendo and Rare logo on it. It's levels of developer autofellatio that I've never seen before, or since thankfully. No, the issue is how they are used and gated from the player. Banana Bunch coins, banana medals and blueprints are all color coded, so they can only be picked up by that Kong. Otherwise they fail to fully join in our physical reality. Ah, it's the ghost of backtracking's past. Gold bananas, while not color coded, are locked to each Kong using the aforementioned gating, as there are specifically 5 gold bananas per Kong on each level. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. This artificial gating of progression is frustrating, it's a massive time sink, and the level platforming is not interesting enough, nor the isolated challenges fun enough to support backtracking a minimum of 5 times to collect everything. Playing this game is a chore, it's worse than work. My quick fix here, make bananas and golden bananas able to be picked up by any Kong. Obviously some bananas and golden bananas will still be locked behind certain Kong's unique abilities, but that banana will go to the collective level tally, not each Kong's individual tally in that level. This will avoid the annoyance of bananas being locked off, as collectibles will be accessible to any Kong. But as it is, all the collections form this fragmented degustation of crap. Actually, hold the phone. There is a fix for this already, completely opposite to what I suggested above. In that rather than collectibles be collected by any Kong, you can change Kongs anywhere. The mod is in the link below, as well as a video by Cole, the fat guy, discussing it, but it looks to completely cut out this repetitive backtracking and leave behind much of the good stuff that was already in the game unaltered. It feels like a fix that should have been a day one patch, if those existed in 1999. It doesn't fix the crap and excessive number of bonus challenges, or the jetpack and original Donkey Kong completion requirement, or getting upgrades individually, but enough negativity, let's talk positives. Okay, before I conclude, let me pause from endlessly shitting on the game like a person with diarrhea would do with someone facing their ass. Firstly, I like the story. Yes, it is simple, but it's told through these fantastic cutscenes. Like Banjo-Kazooie before it, Rare's flair for animations excel, being very cinematic for the N64, and are loaded with humour, particularly the goofiness of K. Rool's bumbling crew. It impresses me to this day how much each scene was dripping with flourishes of animation. K. Rool petting his pet little alligator is one example that stood out to me. And having K. Rool's Island Destroyer, which is part of the story, sitting in the water just off the island really sells the story and potential destruction of the island. Also, the aesthetic of the game is top notch. We are talking about very smooth, cartoony character Kong movement, and level colour palettes and textures that just pop. Both tremendous assets of Banjo-Kazooie 2, except Donkey Kong outsurpasses Banjo with fantastic lighting in various stages. Of note are the underwater sections in Gloomy Galleon, requiring a fish with a light to illuminate the path, and boss door opening scenes. And Donkey Kong's house is just plain sweet, with a lot of graphical attentions to detail. I don't hate the bosses, I don't like them either. In fact, I don't remember half of them. Who the fuck is this? But they are decent. Hell, I'll take a boss over any of those barrel challenges any day of the week. At least if I die, it's my fault. I actually fought the armadillo on the N64 system in a supermarket, so I have nostalgia for that boss in particular. This might not be a common opinion, but I thought they were visually pretty epic. The advanced lighting effects making the lightning briefly illuminate the boss was fantastic. Even if they have a pattern of dodge attacks until vulnerable that is so rote that even the second boss copies from the first. There is even an identical infinite explosive barrel generator in the arena. It is very stock standard. The standout boss to me was Pufftos, mainly because the movement in the boat was fast and fluid, and weaving between attacks to race through gates was a fun challenge. Mad Jack was pretty unique as far as bosses go. It's quite challenging platforming and counting, as you must jump columns to the correct switch to deal damage, while being chased and avoiding attacks yourself. And all bosses have cool movies introducing the fight, but it does resort to repeating bosses on a couple of occasions. The Armadillo fight is identical, while the Dogodon introduces a new phase at the end of the second encounter, making the use of Chunky's unique abilities. But it is strange that this boss is repeated, when early in the level, Tiny comes across a unique spider mini-boss, and the fake K. Rool boss fight, while having epic music, sucks in terms of difficulty. Both seeing the boss and the timing is so tight that you really must be lucky with the final hits. If he moves out of the way, that Kong is lost for the rest of the battle, making it a gamble to even try and attack. DK64 even manages to do an inverse of Banjo-Kazooie, that is, having a brilliant game with a bullshit final boss, by having a bullshit game followed by a brilliant final boss. Up until that point, only one Kong faces a boss, but against K. Rool, all the Kongs team up, each involved in a multi-phase fight, each section involving different platforming challenges and progressing to a finale. Sure, most of the sections controlled terribly, like Lanky's section, and Diddy's flying section, but when did that control well? Nowhere else in the game, that's for sure. And Donkey and Tiny's section requiring such tight timing that it became more about luck than skill, making the whole gauntlet very punishing. And the music is great, but I would expect that from musical whiz Grant Kirkhope. It doesn't hit quite the same high notes that Banjo-Kazooie did, but still the themes for the worlds are great, DK Isles is full of wonder, Jungle Japes has this funky jungle beat, Funky Forest and Crystal Caves both have this sense of mystery to them, and the creepy castle theme is my particular favourite. The music is so great that I've been using it for this entire video. It is quite a unique score, standing out from the other upbeat tunes of Banjo-Kazooie, instead leaning more towards mysterious and awe-inspiring tracks. I don't know how well to describe that, I'm not a Mozart, but what the music does succeed in hand with the nice graphics and lighting, is create a fantastic sense of atmosphere, which is one of the game's high points, according to Dunkey, and myself, because I just copy him. While I say there isn't much to collect in the scheme of things in order to beat the game, the monkey part of my brain strongly urges me to collect all the bananas and 100% the game. I do it with all games, but here it's just unfeasible. Every room I go into with one Kong, I do what they can and collect what they can, but I find I need to come back with 2 or more Kongs to collect that banana balloon, or to hit that switch. Moreover, I need to come back with a 4th Kong to collect bananas leading down a path to get to that room, and it all just repeats for all rooms in the level, and for all levels. It's just too much stress for my mind, trying to keep track of these things, and the game moves from fun to stressful. So I didn't bother about collecting 100%. I have 2 kids, man, I don't have time for this run around. I mean, yes, I did get 100% completion. Actually, it goes up to 101% if you collect everything, which I also did. Actually, I got 102%. Go me. Okay, I've had enough shitting on Donkey Kong 64. If you love this game and have made it this far in the video, wow, for starters. But I can also see where you're coming from as well, because out of all the games that I hate, this is the one that I can most understand someone loving. There is a lot going for it. Is it a bad game? No, of course not. but in the golden age of platforming, it took several severe missteps, and that's the reason why I don't believe it's a classic. Donkey Kong 64 is just like my mum said about me as a kid, beautiful, but only on the surface, and aging rapidly. The positives to the game, I think the graphics, the cutscenes, the aesthetics of the level, and the music are strong, and I must be a meteorologist because I feel like I'm talking about atmosphere again. But unfortunately, platformers live and die by their gameplay. And under the surface, the flaws are so significant that it barely functions as a normal human being. I mean video game, I'm still talking about Donkey Kong 64. What with the annoying minigames, poor level design, etc. Actually, I forgot a fair chunk of the game from when I was a kid, possibly for my own benefit, so I was unsure initially of how I felt coming back to it. As an adult, I really appreciate the technical and aesthetic elements, the fantastic cutscenes that I acutely remember from my childhood, the fantastic Kongs themselves, the stunning lighting effects, smooth graphics, and the moody music may really create a fantastic vibe that neither Banjo-Kazooie, Tooie, or other Rare games have emulated, with the exception of the Donkey Kong Country games or the SNES. But the artificial gating that did annoy me as a child annoyed me as an adult. The minigame challenges that frustrated me as a child did the same to me as an adult, because it's not about how well you can perform the motor functions with a controller, it is just luck. However, with my improved motor function and benefit of save states, I did, for a second time, get to K. Rool, the final boss, and in fact, beat him for the first time ever. And while the fight was cool, with fun and humorous animations, the actual gameplay of it was shite and based on chance, and whether Lanky's arms decided to go through the floor or not. And then in the end cutscene, he ogles some boobs and gets shot in the ass, I think. That, as an end cutscene, is fine, but the lengths I had to do to get here, it was just underwhelming. If the game was easier, I could have appreciated that cutscene more. But alas, in fact the game's best cutscene, in my opinion, although it did receive some initial hate, requires absolutely no gameplay to reach, so I would advise perhaps stopping the game there.